Good afternoon and welcome to First United Methodist Church in Farmington for our weekly devotional time. As always, we share this day's devotional from the Upper Room, and today it comes to us from Valerie Bryant Bennett of Tennessee, who begins with verses from Genesis chapter 32, verses 22 to 30. That night, Jacob got up and took his 2 wives, his 2 female servants, and his 11 sons, and crossed the ford at the Jabbok. After he had sent them across the stream, he sent over all of his possessions. So Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until daybreak. When the man saw that he could not overpower him, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip so that his hip was wrenched as he wrestled with the man. Then the man said, "Let me go, for it's daybreak." But Jacob replied, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." The man asked him, "What is your name?" "Jacob," he answered. Then the man said, "Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with humans, and you have overcome." Jacob said, "Please tell me your name." But he replied, "Why do you ask my name?" And then he blessed him there. So Jacob called the place Peniel, saying, "It is because I saw God face to face, and yet my life was spared." Valerie also cites Isaiah chapter 45, verse 3. "I will give you the treasures of darkness and riches hidden in secret places, so that you may know that it is I, the Lord, the God of Israel, who call you by your name." And Valerie's reflection is entitled "Dark Night with God." On a Saturday morning several years ago, my best friend died in an accident. I spent much of the day with his family, but it wasn't until that night in bed, alone in the dark, that I was truly struck by the impact of losing him. I cried out to God through my tears, but I felt no response. I wondered if God had turned a deaf ear. Finally, I remembered how Jacob told the angel, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." So I prayed, "God, I know you are there, and I will hold on until you answer me." At that moment, I was suddenly flooded with an overwhelming sense of God's presence and peace. I will always remember the power and intimacy of that dark night with God. Some of God's most valuable gifts are revealed in the darkness. Because God is always with us, even the most painful experience can contain life-changing treasures. Our prayer focus for today is someone grieving a friend's loss. And the thought for the day, I find some of God's most valuable gifts in places I least expect. As I considered this reflection, I thought about experiences of death in my own life. Death, especially of someone to whom I was close. Both of my parents have died, and my husband died in 2009. And last year, a very dear friend of mine died after a long struggle with cancer in the midst of this pandemic. I believe that God speaks to each of us in the voice that brings us the most comfort and the most sense of God's presence, especially in our darkest times. God can speak when we are alone in the darkness, or through nature when we are walking by ourselves in God's natural world. And often, God can speak to us through the voices of those who surround us. For me, the voice of God has been most clear through the presence and words of those who have come to offer me comfort and words of sympathy and encouragement. The people who surround me have been a gift and a blessing from God for me. And I am very grateful for their presence always, but especially in times of grief and struggle. And our prayer for today comes from Valerie Bryant Bennett, who says, "Dear God, make your presence powerfully known to us when we are despairing. Bring us to new life through Christ." Amen.